manga spoilers, by the way. As the fateful day comes, Halloween, October 31st of 2018, as the confused civilians of Shibuya are trapped inside due to the curtain that was put up already, all they can do now is shout the name of the honored one, Satoru Gojo's name, in hopes that they'll be able to leave Shibuya alive. At 8:31 p.m., the strongest sorcerer alive makes his appearance as he bumps into the same civilian who was shouting his name not too long ago. As 7 minutes goes by, as we transition to basement 1 of Hikari Shinkyu, we see Gojo figure out that the curtain trapping non-sorcerers stems from below, so Gojo goes and checks if this is true or not. As he walks over everyone with the use of the Limitless, as he's on the scene, floating over the underground subway station, he now seems to understand the enemy's plan they have for him, and so he accepts this challenge with open arms. As he descends down onto the Fukutoshin line platform, he tells the enemy revealed to be the disaster curses and Choso that they look like they're ready to go, but there's no excuses if they lose this time, with Jogo replying that he shouldn't worry about them and that Gojo should just be sure to have his first ever excuse ready. As it's now 8:40 p.m, we see Hanami use his tree ability to cover the only exit so Gojo can't escape. Gojo tells him not to bother, being that he's not going anywhere, being that if he were to run away, the disaster curses are gonna kill everyone. But Jogo responds to that saying even if Gojo doesn't run away, they'll still kill everyone as the gates open, causing a flood of people to be pushed on the same tracks that both Gojo and the curses are standing on. As Jogo, Hanami, and Choso are on a killing spree, ending the lives of many civilians in seconds, we see Jogo and Hanami close in on Gojo as they both yell out domain amplification. Gojo manages to get away with some knowledge of what they were trying to do just now, and that he should have figured out what they were doing earlier, being that they're working with a cursed user. He states that domain amplification looks like the same as the new Shadow Simple Domain, and if you think of the simple barrier techniques as a box or prison that traps its targets, then domain amplification would be as if you're surrounded by water, comparing it to when you initially push back against a domain, and that the chances of an attack missing will increase, but it will always neutralize the technique, and that with this method, he's now vulnerable to their attacks. As Jogo recalls to Gojo that he said no running away, as he snatches someone's head right off their body, asking if they need more convincing, Gojo then says to Jogo that he's surprised. Jogo questions if he's making excuses now or not, but Gojo says nah, replying that he was just surprised that they had the slightest idea that they could beat him using their sorry excuse for a brain. As he pulls down his blindfold, revealing his 6 eyes. Gojo then points to Hanami, referring to him as Weed, as he recalls that this is the 3rd time that they have met, and he still hasn't learned his lesson, but not to worry cause this will be his last time, as Gojo states that he's taking him down first. Gojo walks up to these spirits menacingly, asking them what's the matter, questioning weren't they the ones that told him not to run away, as he stands face to face with them. As Jogo tries to punch Gojo, he catches it, and as Gojo clocks in that their hands actually touch this time, it's already too late. As Hanami tries to kick Gojo, Gojo ducks it, as he puts his legs around Jogo's arm as he rips it off his body without a second thought. Hanami tries to punch Gojo from on top, but Gojo quickly blocks it with Jogo's arm, kicking Hanami's leg at the same time. Jogo tries to make a run for it, but that's when Gojo quickly follows behind. As Hanami sees this, he questions whether or not Gojo said what he said earlier to confuse them. But not only that, he deactivated his limitless curse technique, and because of that, Hanami decides to use his curse technique. But as Jogo yells at Hanami not to deactivate his domain amplification, it's already too late, as we see a feral Gojo turn around with the biggest grin on his face as he blitzes towards Hanami, clings on his body, grabbing his tree-like horns for eyes, telling him that someone told him that his horns is his weak point, as he proceeds to yank them out of his body, confirming Gojo's theory that he couldn't use domain amplification and his innate technique at the same time. Jogo says that the only reason he survived earlier was because the amplification was protecting him, realizing that the strongest sorcerer is this strong even though he's just using cursed energy manipulation and physical attacks, questioning if there's anything the great Satoru Gojo doesn't have. As Gojo notices that Choso is using his blood manipulation to kill some non-sorcerers, At a quick glance, Gojo is able to identify that he's not a cursed spear and that most likely he's a cursed womb death painting, and that even though he bugs him, he doesn't seem to be as proactive as Hanami and Jogo, stating that he can wait. But right then and there, we see Hanami and Jogo try to get the jump on Gojo once again, but his limitless makes it unable for their attacks to actually land. Gojo tells them that if he tries to neutralize his attack with their amplification, then he'll just counter by strengthening his curse technique. But he doubts that Hanami's up to the challenge considering his state. But out of nowhere, Gojo smashes Hanami against the wall with the use of his limitless curse technique. As Jogo sees this, he tries to distract Gojo by charging up an attack towards the many civilians standing behind them. But it's already too late as Gojo completely crushes and destroys Hanami's body with the limitless, leaving absolutely no trace behind as he begins to turn his head towards Gojo, as the only word that would come out of his mouth is next, asking if there's anyone else willing to risk their life as they challenge the peak of Jujutsu sorcery of a man such as Satoru Gojo. As Gojo starts to chase down Jogo down the crowd of civilians, we see Jogo throw someone in front of Gojo as he tries to get behind him and attack him. But sadly for Jogo, this method doesn't work due to the limitless, so Jogo just continues to hide amongst the crowd of people, as he yells at Choso, stating that he'll kill him if he doesn't start to help out. Choso then starts to use blood manipulation, but of course, Gojo's limitless prevents the attack from actually landing on him. Gojo starts to see that they're trying to keep their distance from him, as that's the best they can do right now. The people who can't see curses are starting to avoid Gojo at the moment, but once enough people scatter around, he'll be able to get Jogo. But undoing his technique like before won't work either, being that it knows he's aiming for close quarter brawls. So if Jogo manages to cooperate with Kusozu and use a large scale technique over the crowd, things will be troublesome, knowing that in the end, not everyone will be saved, but he'll definitely exercise Gojo. Jogo then questions Geto, saying that the 20 minutes that they assume until he stepped in has already passed, so what exactly is he waiting for? But Geto says that Gojo is still doing fine, telling Jogo that he needs to get him more worked up. Out of nowhere, the train comes towards where Gojo and Jogo are fighting, and as one of the civilians try to get on the train in order to get out of Shibuya, that's when he gets a closer look into the window as he sees the train filled with transfigured humans, as they break through the window and through the subway door and start to attack the civilians. We then see Mahito hop out as happy as ever as he says that the smell there is great and full of fear, and suggesting that they should leave a few humans alive so that they could release them into the wild and hunt them down on the weekends. Jogo asks if he can burn the whole forest down, but Mahito says that Hanami will get mad if he does that, but Jogo quickly updates Mahito with absolutely no filter, telling him that Hanami's dead. As swarms of transfigured humans start to attack the people, Gojo is confused due to the fact that whittling down the numbers of humans is not to their advantage. Mahito then tries to get close to Gojo, trying to punch him, but the attack doesn't connect because of the limitless. But Mahito is amazed because he really can't touch Gojo. Gojo notices that this is the curse Nanami and Yuji both fought. As Gojo hits Mahito away, Mahito shares one thing he finds disgusting about humans, being that there's so many of them, as he points to the swarm of humans falling down to their bottom level of the station. Gojo sees that the atrium that Hanami closed off is opening back up, assuming there has to be more curses or curse users upstairs, questioning if they're planning to dump everybody in Shibuya down there. As both Choso and Mahito combine attacks, killing the people closely around Gojo, we then see Jogo try to get the jump on Gojo once again as he tries to punch him, but unluckily for him, Gojo grabs his arm and rips it cleanly off his body once again. Mahito begins to say that Gojo is different from Itadori, being that he's capable of being cold-hearted and that he's willing to make sacrifices to exercise them. However, now that their casualties are increasing and more humans are coming into play, the limit of what he's willing to sacrifice is reaching its breaking point. He's been put in a position where his one and only option is casting his domain, but by using it, he could very much kill them as well as everybody else down there with him. He could save everyone outside the domain plus everyone not down there with him in the 5th floor of the basement, but he can't and he won't because his concept of sacrifice is limited to the humans who were killed by curses and not by the ones killed by Gojo, stating that he'll make him think and agonize. But that's when they all sense the immense pressure and curse energy, And as Mahito asks Gojo if he's serious or not, that's when Gojo does the unthinkable and casts his domain expansion, Immeasurable Void. As everyone there is stunned by the domain, it quickly wears off. It's then revealed that Gojo's all or nothing domain expansion of 0.2 seconds, as he quickly tries to eliminate all the transfigured humans. Gojo assumes that a non-sorcerer could withstand about 0.2 seconds in his domain without suffering the everlasting effects. And although this was a rough estimate, the amount of information that flooded the brains of the non-sorcerers, including the transfigured ones, was about half a year's worth, as everyone was standing there unconscious. So in simpler terms, this level of immeasurable void could allow special grade curses to awaken at any moment, taking into consideration a counterattack. The target would be narrowed down to transfigured humans. Approximately 1,000 transfigured humans that were released within BF5 of the Fukutoshin line would be annihilated in 299 seconds after the deactivation of domain by the hands of the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer alive. But right at that moment, a box is thrown onto the ground in front of Gojo, as we then see Geto say, "Prison Realm, open." As the prison realm opens, we see a large bloodied eye look at Gojo, but as he tries to turn, the next word shock Gojo straight to his core as he hears a friendly hello from Geto, his best friend he killed last year with his bare hands. Gojo questions if he's a fake or this is some kind of transformation technique, but all the possibilities are rejected by his six eyes. In that moment, 3 years of Gojo's youth started to flood in his brain as the prison realm traps him. Gojo then asks who the man standing before him is, but he replies that he's Suguru Geto, questioning if Gojo really forgot about him or not. But Gojo says that his body and even his cursed energy are the same, and that his six eyes are telling him that he's Suguru Geto, but his soul knows otherwise. As he begins to shout again, asking who exactly the man standing in front of him is, he then reveals as he takes off the top of his head, revealing a brain-like cursed spirit with a mouth, as he asks Gojo how did he know. This man also reveals that it's a cursed technique that allows him to hop between bodies by switching brains, allowing him to use the innate technique within the body as well. Geto tells Gojo that he's only considered in such awkward moments and thinks that he was able to obtain this body without much trouble. But he tells Gojo not to worry, being that the seal will be over in about 1,000 years or so. Gojo is too strong, and because of this, he was in the way of his plans. Gojo asks this fake if he remembers who beat up Geto's body before killing him, being Yuta Okotsu. But this fake says that he doesn't really understand the hype about him. His ability to unconditionally copy curse techniques and his boundless amount of curse energy are both from the result of him having to detain his loved one's soul, stating that he doesn't think that Yuta could become the next Satoru Gojo. He then says goodnight to Gojo, as he tells him that they should meet again in the new world, as he seals him in the prison realm.